So in the last episode of Greenfoot we looked at how we could add keyboard controls so that we could move around the screen and how we could avoid the fireballs and not get killed. However, you can see now that we have a problem, and that is that my game won't end and I don't really have much to do. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to count the power-ups as we eat them and then add a game over once we've eaten all of the available power-ups. So before we add the score, I thought it might be nice for us to see how we can add our own sounds or add some more interesting sounds to our game. Greenfoot comes with a lovely little feature under controls called Show Sound Recorder, and excuse me, it allows us to record some sound. Now there is a website called WavSource. There's lots of others, but this is the one that I found works. And with WavSource you can search for different sounds and find sounds that you want, and then once you've got them you can play them. So you can see here it says play your sound, and for me in Windows this box is open and I was able to play it, and if I click play again, there's my fanfare. So this is a nice way. So how are we going to do it? Well, I'm going to have to be quick, but the plan is I'm going to click record, click play again, and then stop the record, and that should record what's being played, and hopefully I'll see some green lines bouncing up and down. So let's have a go. So there looks like some sound. Let's just test it. Very, very quiet, probably because I'm recording over microphones actually on a virtual computer, but hopefully this will work better for you. And of course you can record, so you can just record your name and talk to the thing. So let's just do that again. Fanfare. Maybe if I turn the monitor up a little bit and see what happens. So record. And then save. Saved. Now that should appear in my folder. So if we go to the folder for the game and in sounds, for this example we should now find the game. There we go, fanfare.wav. So that's worked. So now on to adding the score and ending the game itself. Your teacher should have already explained to you about variables and the different data types involved in keeping track of data and different values within programming. So I'm going to get straight into adding this variable and showing you how we can keep track of the score. We're going to go into the spaceship and we're going to open the editor. Underneath the declaration for the class, that's these first two lines here where we give the class a name and we say how it extends player. Underneath that declaration, making sure we include the curly bracket, we're going to start with a comment. So this variable keeps track of the score. Power ups eaten. So the variable today is going to start with the word private. Private just says that only the spaceship class or objects of the spaceship type can access it. There are others. There's protected, there's public, but we won't be using those today and they have different meanings. So we're going to start with a private variable, and it's of type int or integer, and that means that it is a whole number, and you should know this from the discussions that you've had with your teacher. We're going to give it a sensible name. This is something we talked about when we did the Good Programming Skills lesson and the Good Programming Skills homework. Identifiable names for our variables means that everything's easier to read. So I'm going to call this number of power-ups eaten, and you'll notice here that I've used something we call camel case so that I don't need to use spaces. Spaces would cause a problem, they would error the program, so typically instead of a space we either use an underscore or we just get rid of the space altogether and put capital letters at the start of each word, which is what I've done. We now need to set a starting value for the variable. It needs to be initialized to a value, and that's because if we'd run the game before, it could have some value left over from previous. So it might be 3, it might be 4, it might be 100. We just don't know. We do not know what is going to go on with that memory. So we must say to the program, you have to start with the value of 0 here. So number of power-ups eaten equals 0. I'm going to copy this now because it just means that I don't have to type that long thing in a bit later, and I'm going to move down to the eating function. So up here we declared and initialized our variable, but we're now going to assign it with a new value every time we eat a power-up. So underneath where the line where we said eat, we're going to put in the name of the variable, number of power-ups eaten, equals the number of power-ups eaten plus 1. So at the moment, number of power-ups equals 0. If we add 1 to that, number of power-ups now equals 1. This is assignment. We're assigning a new value to our number of power-ups eaten variable every time we eat a member of the power-ups class. Now there is a slightly shorter way to write this. We can get rid of all this and we can actually just use plus plus. Okay, and this says exactly the same thing. This says the number of power-ups eaten currently plus 1 more is the new value for that variable. Now I have on my game 3 power-ups, and I want to see whether I can end the game once I reach that maximum of 3. So I'm going to create a new method. Can I end the game? And this is a new method call, so we need a new method. Check if game can end and end game if true. So again, using comments to help explain things as we go along. Can I end the game? Not forgetting my rounded brackets and my curly brackets. Now this is going to use an if statement, and you'll be familiar with if statements because we've used them a couple of times. If number of power-ups eaten equals 3. Now you might be wondering why I've put a double equals there. I've put a double equals there because this is an equality test. It says, does the number of power-ups eaten equal 3? Okay. If you use a single equals, it's assignment. And if you remember when we wrote this in longhand up here, we wrote number of power-ups equals, just the 1, number of power-ups eaten plus 1. That's assignment. 2 equals next to each other with no space is equality. So if the number of power-ups eaten, well, we can do greenfoot dot stop, which will end the game. But before that we do that, let's use that sound that we just created and change the file name and play the sound. So that should be working, hopefully, fingers crossed. I'll compile it now and we won't have any errors. Oh, invalid method declaration, return type required. So if you look at this line here, you can see that I missed out the word void where that red line is. So let's add that, and fingers crossed that second time around it works. And it looks like it does. So let's have a go at playing our game and see if I can achieve the great result of 3. And there you go. My game has ended successfully with a fanfare, and we can now think about adding even more exciting features. So have a go at that and see how you get on. Good luck.